Everybody. And can you hear that, TJ? You hear that crashing sound? That's the Florida Panthers season. We're recording this. It's about 3 hours. Yeah, New Year's Day, a couple hours after the Panthers lost another game to the New York Rangers 5-3. They've lost two of their last three after the winter break, where basically everyone said, like, it's do or die time for this team. And guess what? They're
sounds
dying.
Like die. Yeah, sounds like die.
Yeah. Fight or flight. They're flying.
Mm-hmm.
Sink or swim. They're sinking.
Mm-hmm.
This Florida Panthers team, they were in trouble. They're on life support now.
Yeah. Let's put it in perspective. Let's talk about, you briefly mentioned it. Let's talk about some teams that now have a better points percentage than the Panthers. Teams that we wrote off early in the season. Teams that were a joke. Teams that were absolutely going to fire their coach at any minute and now have better points percentage than the Panthers. Let's start with the Vancouver Canucks. Canucks
Christ.
Better.
I didn't even know the Vancouver Canucks were above the Panthers. Oh my God.
486 points percentage compared to the Panthers, 474 points percentage.
I thought you were about to talk about Ottawa, and I was like, that was rock bottom.
We'll get to Ottawa in a second.
Right. But the fact that the Canucks have now passed the Panthers, like, oh my God. It's bad. By the way, guys, this is an episode of Panther Pourri Express. It's just TJ and I today, but like the awkward start is just the utter shock at the realization that this Florida Panthers season has come crashing down. I mean, look, we've all seen the writing on the wall for a while. Like, we keep saying, like, hey, it's got to turn around, and it just doesn't turn around.
They're in 25th place right now. This team doesn't have their first-round pick this year. They're in 25th. If there was no lottery, they would be picking 8th in the draft, if I'm doing my math correct. Yeah, they would be picking 8th.
And that's assuming no lotto luck either way. Like,
yes.
They're now 8 points out of the final playoff spot with two
playoffs?
Two games extra. I'm just saying for those who
I know. I'm just making a meme.
Yeah, I know. But like, this team is now past the a quick 4 or 5 game win streak and they're right back in it.
No,
they need a 10 game win streak. Like, we are in January. It is 2023, and this team is yet to win 3 games in a row.
Yeah, I don't really even care about that, but I get what you're saying. Like, they've lost 18 games in regulation. The Coyotes have only lost 17. Now, they've played 3 fewer games, but the Flyers have played 1 fewer game, lost 1 fewer game in regulation.
Yeah.
There are only 5 teams with more regulation losses right now than the Panthers. That's the ultimate thing that you cannot do in the regular season. You have to keep your regulation losses to a minimum. You can get to the shootout, whatever. Like, bad coaches do it all the time. They save their jobs by getting lots of overtime points or maybe getting a win in overtime. Bob Bugner, in the third periods of tied games, he would hold on to the possibility of a loser point for dear life, and that elevated his teams in the standings, more than they actually were. Those were some. I mean, they weren't total trash, but those weren't good teams. This should be a good team, and it's not even playing that well. Not even playing as well as that.
It's not even like the Panthers have an opportunity to get teams into overtime. They are always behind late.
By multiple goals, yeah.
Yeah, and the cardiac cats of last year, where it's like they decide, like, all right, fuck it, we're flipping the switch and we're going to absolutely dominate the puck for the next 15 minutes of play, and you hold on for dear life. That team does not exist anymore.
Yeah, and let me break one of my cardinal rules of saying that I don't care about what's said in press conferences. I feel like with Paul Maurice it's different because he's way more candid than a typical coach would be. And
I disagree.
You don't think so? You think he...
Up until tonight, I thought he was just making a whole bunch of generic canned excuses.
Well, I remember in some press conference, I think it might have been before the Montreal game, the question was asked about, they haven't made as many comebacks in games. And Paul Maurice said something along the lines of, well, yeah, like in the regular season, sometimes teams can really open it up, and that's how they were able to come back in games. But that doesn't happen in the playoffs. And like, we have to absolutely condemn any time that Paul Maurice tries to say playoff hockey or Bill Zito tries to say playoff hockey, playoff style, any of that. Like, first of all, they're not making the playoffs. Like, if they made the playoffs, it would be a modern miracle. It would be a minor miracle at least.
Minor. I would say minor, not modern. Like,
they're not on course to make the playoffs. They're not on close to be competitive for the playoffs come February, March, and April. Like, these things that the pathetic franchises talk about, like desperately wanting to be not even in the playoffs, which half the teams in the league are, but like relevant in a playoff race. Well, the Panthers don't have their first round pick, and it's not looking like they're even going to be relevant in the playoff race unless things drastically change. And I know that the tone that I'm taking has taken a turn for the worse here, but I mean, I know that one game shouldn't really be the way that you gauge an 82-game season, but the Islander game was like my Joker moment, where they just had, from the first minute of that game, they had no effort in an absolutely vital game. They had to win that game. That was as important as a game in December can be. And they didn't just lose that game. They got flattened. They got curb stomped by the Islanders, who aren't good. That's not a good team. They're probably not even going to make the playoffs. They have a goalie. That's all.
Yeah, that's a team that's lived off of not Shesterkin. What's their Russian goalie? Sorokin. They've lived off Sorokin. That's a team where it's like you can pummel them to death, and it's like, does Sorokin break that night? And they walked all over the Panthers. It was so bad. Like, where is the urgency? Like, you hear them all these great quotes of like, oh yeah, we gotta, it's the playoffs now, and like every game is a playoff game for us, and blah blah blah. Where is the urgency? Mm-hmm. Tonight's another example. Like, the Rangers dominated the first 10 minutes of the game. Dominated it. They had all the shots, all the quality. The Panthers did not get anything resembling a quality chance until the 10-minute mark of the first period. And that's a trend. I mean, the Carolina game 2 nights ago on New Year's, on the 30th.
Day before New Year's Eve, yeah.
Yeah, on the 30th. They had like 3 shots 10 minutes into the game. In like the second period. Well, into the second period, they had 3 shots. And that was with a whole bunch of power play opportunities. This team is broken. And it's like, I want to go back to like Maurice for basically the entire month of December. Like, every time the Panthers would lose, it's like, well, we just need to get our guys back. The only guy he's missing is Duclair, and everyone else is there. Everyone else of importance is there. Because I don't want to hear about how Patrick Hornquist is the glue that holds this team together. Like, Barkov is back. Everyone is there. And they're still losing, and they're losing in uninspired fashion. Tonight was a little bit of bad luck in terms of the Panthers, had the much better quality of chances. But, your goalie let you down. Bob does what Bob's been doing since he became a Panther.
And like you said, they started much slower. And I mean, we can say that that's true, that they probably deserved a little bit better, but like, the way the season has gone, they don't deserve the benefit of the doubt. So if they had dominated every minute of that game, yeah, sure. Like, I guess like not every single minute, but like if they were in control from puck drop, then I'd be, maybe a little bit more willing to say like, oh, kind of a bad luck. And that's where things I think have really turned recently. Like, they have been close with a lot of teams and, losing a bunch of games that they should have won. But now the efforts are just duds. Like, they deserve to lose these games, and they're losing them. Like, they deserve to lose the game against the Islanders. They deserve probably to lose tonight because you just can't get behind the 8 ball like that. Like, you give up a couple of early goals, teams can lock it down so easily now. And the Rangers especially, like, they're very used to doing it.
Yeah. Like, you didn't, like I said, you didn't generate quality until 7 minutes into the game. You gave up the first goal of the game on a power play because your special teams are absolutely horrible. horrible, both power play and penalty kill. Like, it's the same story game after game. Your power play gets nothing done. You give up goals while shorthanded, and you're pretty good at 5-on-5. Like, the Carolina game, that was such an embarrassing effort. It was horrible. And yeah, I get it. Second night of a back-to-back after a winter break. It wasn't the easiest situation. It wasn't great. But guess what? You put yourself 9 points out of a playoff spot. You had to win that game. Or not win that game. You had to get that game into overtime, and you laid an egg.
Yeah, and you know why you did? Because you lost in regulation to the Islanders, who were playing on the second night of a back-to-back. You lost in regulation to the Devils, who were playing on the second night of a back-to-back. Yeah. It's so hard to play on the second night of a back-to-back. Well, apparently not if you're playing the Panthers. Apparently not.
Yeah,
and those were home games. Yeah. Well, the Islanders wasn't.
Excuse me, you're right. But they were there, and the Islanders had to fly in, if I remember right.
Right, yeah. So not only did they have the extra day of rest, the Islanders – or no, wait. The Islanders played the Rangers the night before, so not really.
Okay, never mind. Either way.
They played the night before. The Panthers didn't.
Yeah.
And still, why did they look like the way more tired team?
Yeah, and I've got nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, Maurice kind of mentioned it. Like I said, today was one of the first times in a while I thought he was pretty direct with his reasonings. It was like, yeah, we put a certain amount of effort in, and once that effort cup fills up, there's no more effort to give, and it just kind of falls apart from there. And the other thing he mentioned is, like, this is basically like tape-to-tape passes. They could not get a tape-to-tape pass all night. Barkov couldn't do it. Like, one of those goals against tonight was Barkov, instead of putting it right on Ekblad's stick, put it in his skates, and it was a turnover. Like, this is pee-wee level stuff the Panthers are struggling mightily with. And it's the NHL, and NHL players are going to take your passes in the skates, turn it into an odd man rush, and put it in the back of your net. And yeah, when it was 5-3 tonight, you saw some anger from Ekblad, and he broke the stick over the crossbar because he had an awful night. Montour, after an icing call, he broke his stick because their team is clearly frustrated. It's like, great to see the emotion when the game is over, guys. Like, where was that the first 10 minutes of the game?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm really at a loss for words with this team at this point. Like, and I'm using the crutch of like so much just because there's so much frustration built up that this season is a duck fart embarrassment. It's so bad.
Mm-hmm. And when you have this bad of a season and don't own your own first round pick, like, I feel like sometimes in sports, especially, like, the point is to enjoy it. So fan hyperbole is generally something that I'm against. But this is absolutely a situation where you should be up in arms. You should be screaming at everybody. Like, we need Bill Zito to have a press conference and talk about what's gone wrong this year. He has to do it. Like, it's unacceptable that it hasn't already happened. I understand that he doesn't like talking to the media. He's not the most charismatic person. But this is a fucking disaster. And you can't have people dedicating thousands of dollars and hours of their free time to support your organization and just give them a complete dud, a complete disaster of a season, and have no explanation.
Yeah, look, there's some GMs who like the microphone a little bit too much. Vancouver comes to mind. Like, anytime that team goes on like a little mini losing streak, that GM goes in front of a microphone and wants to talk to everyone. And it's like, look, we're not, you don't need to do that. But when this was a team that had, was expected to be a 100-plus point team, and you are struggling to be above 80-point pace at this point, someone's got to say something. And I mean, this is not me trying to say, hey, I'm right, blah, blah, blah. But like, when all of these moves happened in the offseason, all of these decisions were made, I said it. Zito is putting his statue at risk, because up until this offseason, or let's go back a little, up until last year's deadline, everything Bill Zito touched turned to gold. So he was feeling himself, and made the Tkachuk trade, and probably, like, he overpaid. Like, Matthew Tkachuk has been really good, but he gave up a first-line winger, a first-pairing defenseman, and a first-round pick, and the greatest of all-time prospect, Cole Schwinn. But, like, you paid a ton and then kept Patrick Hornquist because of a promise. Like, you pushed all your chips on the table. You got rid of Andrew Brunette and brought in Paul Maurice, a move that the three of us, even though Jacob's not here, we all thought it was a bad move. But, like, Zito said, hey, guys, everything I do turns to gold. I am going to take the President's Cup trophy winner and remake it in my image. And now that it's all crumbling down, everyone's just looking around being like, okay, who's going to tell us what's next? Who's going to tell us what the plan is to fix it? Something.
Yeah, and you know what, Bill? If the plan is that, sort of like we had been saying prior to this past couple of weeks of games, and, I guess I have to cop to it that I said, the things are about to turn around. They just haven't been getting the scoring that the XG implies. Well, the caveat was always that if the effort stopped showing up the way that it had been, that the results could continue to plummet. And, it's Maurice's responsibility and the organization around him responsibility to keep the team motivated and fire them up to make up on the deficit that they've built. And clearly it's got them down in the dumps. And you see this happen all the time. Like the Devils and the Kraken last year in the first half of the season, or let's say the first third of the season, because that's after that point where the Panther season really started to fall apart. Those were good teams that just got no goaltending. And what happened after that was they fell apart in every other aspect of the game because those teams thought they were bad. And they didn't have the leadership behind the bench to tell them, this is how we're going to turn the season around. And that's what's going on with the Panthers right now. This is a good team. They have the everything in place, the structure to be a good team. But, whatever the cogs that have been tweaked, whatever buttons have been pressed, have all been in the wrong ones. And does that mean that it's time for somebody else to start pressing the buttons, start pulling the levers? I don't know. But clearly that's something that the management group and the coach has to take heat for. Like, this we've seen it. Like, we've seen this team play very, very well on a night-in, night-out basis this season. Why can't it have continued today? Why can't it have continued in Carolina? Like, they played Carolina earlier this year. They won 3-0.
Yep. And that's where I'm going to disagree with you, TJ. I don't see them pushing buttons. I don't see them changing things. Because, we've been saying it for weeks. Even George, when he was on it with us, said it. Like, you've got Eric Stahl and Mark Stahl playing every night, two 35-plus-year-old guys. What is Matt Kierstead doing being scratched for the second night of a back-to-back? What? Why is Eric Stahl playing every single game? And yes, his points are finally coming, but like he's horrible on the penalty kill. Like, you need fresh legs. Yeah. You need to be doing something different.
Yeah. We saw pretty much every AHL guy step in and immediately look better than Eric Stahl. We've seen Matt Kierstead play. He's looked better than Mark Stahl. Who are the other defensemen that played? Lucas Carlson, look, we'll never have an unbiased opinion about him. So
he only got 2 games.
Yeah,
so.
But last year he showed us that he was better than Mark Stahl is currently. And it's not even like Mark Stahl's sinking the team, but like that's another area where it's like, this is clear malpractice. Like, why are you doing this? It's clearly not working.
Yeah, the season is sinking, and it's just like, is someone going to pick up a bucket?
Are you trying things? Yeah, I guess I get what you're saying, but like, when I'm talking about pushing buttons, I'm saying things like, what are they saying in practice? What are they saying in the locker room? Right. How are they managing emotions?
Fair. I'm just seeing this season sink further and further, and nothing is changing. Like, there's been zero attempt to adopt what they were doing last year. Yes, I understand the coaching staff has changed, but enough of the lineup is here where you can, Maurice and Barkov have a sit down and say, okay, hey, what were you guys doing last year that worked that we stopped doing, and we need to bring that back? Because the playoff style hockey that Maurice has been preaching and making this team play is not working.
What wins in the playoffs? Defense. This team's one of the at least most mediocre if not bad, defensive teams in the league. The defense stinks.
The defense sucks. And you know why? Because your Norris caliber, well, you got rid of one Norris caliber defenseman, and then your other one is playing injured.
Yeah. And why, by the way? Like, they did not get better when Ekblad came back into the lineup. They did not. He should have still been on the men's. That's just clearly worked out poorly. I know hindsight is 20/20, but that's worked out so badly.
My guess is it's one of those things where it's not a matter of rest, it's a matter of surgery, and surgery is going to take a long time. That's my only guess.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, he can sit for 2 weeks, but the knee is not going to get better.
In this case, it's a groin, but I understand.
Groin, excuse me. Ugh. But, Ekblad has not been, just in general, he's not been as good, but, you watch him skate, and he is so much slower than last year. And it's not like he's, 30 plus years old.
No.
He's still young.
Yes.
And he was not this slow last year when he came back from injury in the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think it's just Uyghur. I really, I think that they miss him clearly, but I really don't think it's just him. Because Forsling is not as good as Uyghur. He's just not. And that was an unpopular hot take or whatever. A lot of people wanted to say, well, actually, Forsling is better, so we'll put him back on the top pairing, and, things will actually get better. Obviously not.
I think Forsling has been good. He's just not Mackenzie Weegar.
He's a number 3, number 4. He's a good number 3, number 4. On his contract, that's perfectly great,
I would say he's a number 2, number 3, but we're splitting hairs. Either way, he's not Mackenzie Weegar, who's a number 1, number 2. Mm-hmm. You've gotten a great season from Brandon Montour. He's been a number 3, number 4 type player for you.
And so is Josh Mahura, who you got on waivers.
Yeah, well, I would say Mahura's leveled off, but he's still been a he's still been a serviceable player where he's not killing you night in, night out. The issue is you traded one Norris caliber defenseman, and Aaron Ekblad is not playing he's playing like a number 4 right now, if we're being honest.
Yes.
He's not giving you anything on the power play. He's not giving you anything on the PK. And at 5-on-5, the fact that he is so slow is a problem. It's a real problem. Mm-hmm. Just because people I know are going to want us to touch on it. Paul Maurice. I don't see how they make a move during the season. He's also the Panthers also have after the season. Panthers have 8 million reasons why they are not going to let him go after one season. But
it didn't work.
It's not working.
Yeah. Sorry, Bill. In order to be this guy's going to navigate the playoffs, you got to get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
And if you don't have your first round pick, you got to get into the playoffs this year. And if your idea is no, we're going to actually rebuild on the fly, then it's Bill's problem then, because that's stupid. That's idiotic.
It's both of their problems. They both Bill made the decision to basically remake a Stanley Cup contending team, a President's Trophy winning team, to extend the window. Fine, but you honored a promise to Hornquist that cost you cap space you desperately needed. Do you think you maybe could have gotten what's his name, who's now with the Senators?
DeBrincat?
No, not DeBrincat. Giroux. You don't think Giroux at $4 million, Giroux would have thought about $4 million? You don't think so?
Well, he's on a better team right now, so.
That's true. He is now on a better team. I'm just saying, it's not working. It's really bad right now. Mm-hmm. We talked about it. Remember Paul Maurice in his introductory press conference? I'm not changing anything about the offense. Remember all of those promises? Guess what he did? He changed the offense. Mm-hmm. He did. I said it. I said it when we were going through at the beginning of the season when he had the conference, and I used the example of Amin Al-Hassan with the Phoenix Suns when they brought in a new coach after Mike D'Antoni left, and the coach said, "The one thing I'm not doing is changing the offense." What did he do? Practice 1, change the offense. Same thing happened here. The process was good early in the season. They were generating chances. They were getting a lot of volume and shots, and the pucks just weren't going in the net. They were getting goalied a lot, but the season's worn on. They're not getting those chances.
What I would say is that the belief in the team, like the team does not believe that what they're doing is going to work. I know that that's just like I'm just throwing that out there. Like I have no reason to tell you that I know that for a fact. But that's my guess as to why this is happening, because
I think it's
first
a good
30
guess.
games of the year, this was one of the best teams in the league, and they just weren't getting the results. And right now, they're just a mid team. And because they're behind the 8 ball, they can't play like a mid team.
Yeah. And now the schedules, they had the easiest schedule in the NHL to start the season. It was Charmin, paper, tissue, soft.
Yes.
It was right there for them to build up a whole bunch of points in the bank. And even with the Ekblad injury, like they were crushing teams in all of the analytics and just could not convert them. And guess what? Now the schedule's hard. Now the travel is really rough. And the travel's been rough. It's been really bad. But, too bad, so sad. You had the opportunity to bank points.
Yeah.
To live
you had
through
a big
tough
homestand. You lost to the Penguins. You lost to the Stars. You lost to the Flames.
The Devils.
Yeah, the Devils.
Flames. Like, man, again, another home game tonight. They lost to the Rangers.
Yeah, that was another, I guess none of them are really must-wins. If we can say it's a must-win and then they lose and we're not saying that they're out. I mean, I would say that, if I could be flippant about it, like, I'm not considering the playoffs a possibility anymore.
And anytime this team does not go to overtime, it's a lot. And obviously doesn't win. It's a huge problem. Because right now, every team they play, they're chasing. This was an opportunity for them to get, within 6 points of the last playoff spot. Yeah, 6 points of the last playoff spot of Pittsburgh and New York. And instead you lost. And now the Rangers are 10 points clear of you.
And the Rangers aren't even comfortably in a playoff spot. The Rangers have one more win than they have losses. If there weren't any loser points and overtime losses, the Panthers would be 6 games below 500. They're 16-22. Did they even lose 22 games last year?
Nope.
Wow. Let me look at that, because
let me double check, but I'm almost positive they did not.
They lost 24.
Okay, excuse me, 24. So yeah, like the All-Star game. The All-Star game's going to come up, and it's going to be like Barca. Like they're going to have to it's going to be embarrassing to try and fit multiple Panthers on the All-Star team. Like they're going to, because it's here. Yeah, but like the All-Star game is supposed
and that's pretty much the only worthy All-Star. Maybe Verhaeghe will be on there.
It's gonna be Barca. It's gonna be the captain. But like this All-Star game was supposed to be like the coronation of, hey, look, the Florida Panthers, they've got it all figured out. They've got a juggernaut team. The fans are starting to show up again, and the building is packed every night. And
yeah, and I mean, let me sign off on this basically by saying it didn't work out handing the keys to the 200 hockey men. There are some people in this organization that believe in analytics and believe in the new way of thinking, but clearly their voice has waned. And I mean, look at what they did in the offseason. And even the one thing that the computers would have liked, bringing in, I can't even remember his name anymore, the guy from San Jose. Rudolph Balcers.
Yeah, Rudolph Balcers.
So they waived him at the first possible opportunity just to keep Eric Stahl, who at the time was playing horribly. And now he's not really on the list of their issues right now. He's okay, He's a fine 11th, 12th forward. I'm not going to say that he's a real asset either, but, not killing them on a night-in, night-out basis anymore. But, everything else, Colin White has stunk. Like, I don't care about the points. He's one of the worst possession players on the team. The team gets worse when he's on the ice, period.
Yeah, he was good to start the year. I was really happy with it, but, yeah, he fell off a cliff. Nick Cousins has been a fine bottom 6 guy.
Yeah, I mean, look, you got what you paid for with him, which is you paid very little, and you got a 12th forward. Great. Like,
But we also knew there wasn't, like, people are catching on. There wasn't a Carter Verhaeghe. There wasn't a Michael Bunting. There wasn't those guys available this year as a UFA. And then they don't have the assets to trade for anybody because they went super all in last offseason and then spent even more on Matthew Tkachuk. Like, they're gonna,
I would do it again, the Matthew Tkachuk thing. I think that you came out a little bit too hard against it.
I think you do it again, but at this point we have to sit there and say it's not working. Right now, as we sit here, the Panthers are 9 points out of a playoff spot, below an 81-point pace. Like, yes, Matthew Tkachuk, the individual, has been good, but the Florida Panthers hockey team with Matthew Tkachuk is not.
Well, I don't think the solution would be the 8-year deals that were given out to Uyghur and Huberdeau. Now, I would have given out the 8-year deal to Uyghur, but it's by no means a guaranteed. It's not a guarantee that it's going to work out. Whereas,
I think Uyghur got 6, but either way,
no, he got an 8-year deal, but it was $6 million AAV. But
it was 6 and 6. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Huberdeau contract doesn't look like it's going to be very pleasant for them. And it was a long-term play, but you do also have to be thinking about short-term, especially when. And I'll say this again and again because it's a really big deal. They traded their first-round pick this year. When you don't have your first-round pick and you stink, that's the cardinal sin of a sports franchise. Lakers fans right now should be absolutely apoplectic at their organization, for example, because they don't have their first-round pick. They stink. And that's what the Panthers are.
They at least got a championship.
Yeah, the Panthers didn't get one.
They got a championship.
Panthers didn't even get to round 3. They didn't even win a game in round 2. They haven't won a game in round 2 since 1996.
Yeah, I think it all kind of goes back to what you said. Like, at some point, someone other than Paul Maurice needs to, jump on the grenade that is this season and answer questions. Yeah, and it's like it's not even like we have a difficult media. This is me calling guys like George and David Dwork soft. Like, they're gonna ask good questions, but you're not gonna get the vitriol you would be getting in Edmonton or Toronto with this disaster. Of
my god, yeah, Toronto. They wanted to talk to Kyle Dubas when they were 5, 6, and 1 or something like that. Yeah, who cares? That was 10 games in.
Yeah,
this is. We're almost halfway through the season. They're 6 games under. They're under NHL 500. That's really hard to do. You got to really suck. And they don't have their first-round pick. And you stuck your head out to hire Paul Maurice this offseason. Everybody in the media thought it was going to be a disaster. I was listening to Puck Soup, this most recent podcast. They said, that's got to be the worst move of the offseason, right? The Panthers hiring Paul Maurice. I mean, I can't disagree. I really can't. And I don't want to put this all on him because I don't think it's all his fault. But, I can't disagree with that. I can't.
You can't, the results speak for themselves at this point.
Yeah.
This was supposed to be a Panther Pourri Express, and we ended up going 30 minutes because that's what we do. Mm-hmm. We need to get Jack Hanna on here.
Okay.
We need him back.
I hear you.
I mean, he said it going into the season that the changes that were going to be made to the Panthers system could be devastating, and here we are. I need him to come in because he's way smarter than both of us. He is so much smarter than us when it comes to hockey talk. I want him to come and explain what the Panthers are doing differently and why it's not working, because I'm so tired of dealing with the fans who are like, if this team just had a little bit more grit and played a little bit more like Matthew Tkachuk, they wouldn't be in this position. And it's Jesus Christ, you're fucking idiots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's really the opposite of their problems right now, to be honest with you. And, I'm probably
considering the last 2 games they've had more hits than their opponent, they should have won those games.
Mm-hmm. And they won more faceoffs against the Hurricanes, I think. So that's a deserved to win game because you won more faceoffs, so they just got unlucky or whatever.
Yeah. All right. That's enough. Final thoughts.
Fuck this shit, man. I'm tired. I haven't watched either of the last 2 games. I don't know the next time I'm gonna watch.
They got Arizona on Tuesday. even if it's another 7-2 laugher like the Montreal game was.
Yeah, who cares?
Like that's no points for that. You don't. No points for that. You need to string wins together against all of your opponents coming up.
Yeah. Talk to me when they have like a 13-2 15-game stretch or something like that, and then we can actually discuss maybe getting into the playoffs. Like, that's how bad it is.
They're going to be on the road a whole bunch this month. They got not a West Coast swing, but, they have to go to Dallas, Colorado, Vegas, and then they go up to Canada and play in Toronto and Montreal. They have back-to-back road games in New York against Pittsburgh. Like, they've got to win all of those games. All of them.
Mm-hmm.
They have room for this. This needs to be we've already started off with an O, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
They got to go like plus 10 this month, and then they probably got to go plus 8 next month.
It's got to be like a 10-2-2 month.
Yeah,
at worst. And they're already 0-1.
Yeah. So maybe they can go 10 or 11 3-0 or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever. Rate us 5 stars on, I don't know, Facebook.
fmylife.com.
Yeah, F My Life, or wherever the people will post those. Today I, did this.
I think that website still exists.
Yeah, so that's today I was a Florida Panthers fan. F My Life.
All right.
What a joke.
Jacob will be here with us next time, hopefully, to bring some more positivity in here. But yeah, TJ.
I doubt it. I mean, we've been texting with him. He's just as pissed as us.
This is true. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for watching. For those of you on YouTube, sorry this was a Panthers Pourri, not so express.
But at least we have the Dolphins.
Fuck you.
All right. Well, at least we have the Heat. Hey, Tyler Hero, buzzer beater. All right, that's it. Thanks everybody for listening. If we're still alive, we haven't killed ourselves. We'll talk to you next time.